Marston's Domain.
Hey everyone, Marston here, and today I'm going to be doing my Kong family tier list. Somebody actually suggested this in one of my live streams, and at first I was like, I don't know if I should do that, because I didn't know if it'd be too interesting, but I think it'd actually be kind of fun, and I think some people are curious as to what I think about some of the Kongs. So I'm not going to really do this in any particular order, I'm just going to kind of wing it, and we'll see what happens. So first off, I'm going to start off with Candy Kong. Now, Candy Kong, I think, is a cool character, but I'm not too much of a fan on the redesign they did with her. I really liked the way she looked in Donkey Kong Country 1, and I have a lot of nostalgia with that save area in general. Just the way it looked, jumping in the barrel, the way the barrel was there in general, and just her standing there. That whole scene is just really nostalgic for me, and it's probably what's swaying my opinion on this. Because like I said, I'm not too into her redesign and how she was in later games, but I really liked the way she was in the first one. So I'm going to rank her as cool, but not the coolest. Next up, I'm going to do Swanky Kong. Now, Swanky Kong, before I put Swanky Kong in the spot that I'm going to, I'm going to start this off by saying, I do know who Swanky Kong is. But when I play Donkey Kong Country, I never go to the places that Swanky Kong is in, because I never had an issue with lives. It was extremely rare that I got a game over. I would only really get a game over if I was fooling around. So for me, I never was trying to get 1-ups. So I never visited Swanky Kong. I mean, I don't think he's a bad character, but he's not memorable to me, and I don't think he's too memorable for a lot of people. So I'm putting Swanky Kong in Who Are You Again? Now, let's get to the controversial part, because I know that this is going to upset some people, but I have the Don't Come Back Please section, and this is for not just one character. I do not like Chunky Kong at all. I never liked Chunky Kong. I couldn't stand the way he acted. Nothing about him to me is cool. And he's also related to my least favorite Kong, and that is Kiddy Kong. I cannot stand Kiddy Kong. All he does is cry. He's not fun to play as, in my opinion. He could do that cool little water trick where he'd bounce on the water, but that's about it. So for me, I just don't like either of those Kongs, and if they never come back, I would be pretty happy. So sorry to people that like those two Kongs, but for me, I don't want them coming back. Next up, I'm going to do Wrinkly Kong. And Wrinkly Kong is interesting because when I went to make this, I had this realization of that her name must have been given to her at birth. So she just got screwed over. Her name is Wrinkly Kong. So as a kid, her name was Wrinkly Kong? I think that's messed up. That would be like having a child and being like, you know what? I think they're gonna have a gigantic wart on their face. I'm gonna name them Wart. I think that's messed up. She's an alright character, but she's going in the don't hate but don't love category because, I don't know. There's nothing too memorable with her, and I could not stand that in DK64 they actually had her die. I never liked that. She should still be alive and kicking, because the fact that she's passed away, I feel like they'll never use her again because I don't think they'll do the whole ghost thing in any other entry ever again. Next up we have Cranky Kong, which Cranky Kong, he's cool to me. I never really visited him in DKC 1 because when I played that game, I couldn't even read yet. And even now, I don't really like to read in video games, so I never really visited him. But I always thought it was funny how he tried to act like he was this amazing video game player because he would kind of taunt you at the end of DKC 1 on how fast he would beat it. So he's a cool Kong to me. I'm not too much of a fan of him though, to the point where I would choose to play him in Tropical Freeze. I think it's cool that you can play as him, but he was never someone that I was like really hoping you could play as. But he's going in the cool but not the coolest section because I do think he's cool, but nothing about him really stands out to me. Next up we have Lanky Kong, which Lanky Kong I always loved. I thought he was a really cool Kong. I loved playing as him in DK64. I thought he was funny. I loved his sound effects. Although playing Barrel Blast, I did not like those sound effects, but In Donkey Kong 64, I loved his design all around. I thought his abilities were cool. I loved walking, doing the handstand thing, and that noise that he made when you did it. Just all around, I love Lanky Kong. But not to the point where I would ever think of him as one of the best Kongs. So I'm gonna have to put him in cool but not the coolest, but he's a little bit above the rest of the ones that are in there so far. Next up, we have Tiny Kong. Tiny Kong, I think she's cool, and I think it's really interesting that they changed her design dramatically in later entries, but I can't help but just feel that they should have just had Dixie Kong in Donkey Kong 64. I think it's cool they tried something different, but I can't help but feel they just replaced Dixie Kong with Tiny Kong. And that feeling just makes me not really rank her too high, but I don't really dislike her either. I still think she's cool. So she's going in the cool but not the coolest section, because I'm not at the point where I think of her like Wrinkly Kong, but it really does bug me that Dixie Kong just wasn't in DK64. Next up, we have Funky Kong, and now Funky Kong, I always thought was cool, but I have to admit, this is me being totally honest, not that I would lie, but I could just not include me saying this, but I feel like I have to. I kind of don't like the bandwagon effect that's happened with Funky Kong. Funky Kong was never really a main character, and Funky Kong was always just what his name implies. He was funky, he was cool. But to have so many people just go on and on and on and on and on about Funky Kong because of Tropical Freeze, I know it should not bother me, but it honestly does. Because all I ever see is Funky Kong should be in Smash. When, to me, Dixie Kong and other Kongs in general are way more worthy of being included in Smash Bros. But everyone just brings up Funky Kong. Like, people that weren't even really too into Donkey Kong are just like, they should have Funky Kong. It bothers me. Just gonna be completely honest about it. It bothers me. So because of that, sorry Funky Kong, but I'm putting you in the don't hate but don't love section. Because it really does aggravate me that this character all of a sudden is just the main Kong because of Tropical Freeze. So, sorry buddy, but I gotta rank you down a little bit because of that, because there's other Kongs that should be in Smash over a character that's never been playable until Tropical Freeze. In a main Donkey Kong game. I already know someone's gonna comment about Mario Kart and stuff like that. I'm talking about a main Donkey Kong game. So, next up, I'm gonna do Diddy Kong. Now, Diddy Kong is really, really cool. I've always loved Diddy Kong. I prefer to play Diddy Kong when I play DKC1. I never really cared too much to play as Donkey Kong. It was always Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong is just really cool. I love his design. I love all of his animations. His expressions are really cool. He is a cool Kong, but he's not the best. He's almost the best Kong. Next up, we have Donkey Kong, which Donkey Kong is what started it all, and he's really cool. However, I don't really like playing as him. In Donkey Kong Country, like I was saying when I was talking about Diddy Kong, I never really played as Donkey Kong. He was just slower, and I always wanted to go as fast as I could. So, Donkey Kong is cool. He's a cool character. I love seeing him in games. I think he's awesome. I love his design. That tie he wears is iconic. He's got that cool little hairdo. But to me, he's not one of the best Kongs. And I gotta say, as a side note, they gotta stop giving him teeth. They randomly give him teeth and he looks ridiculous. They do that with Diddy Kong too, but man, Donkey Kong to me, I see it more often and I don't like it. So, no more teeth. Leave him without the teeth. He's cool but not the coolest. But he's what started it all, so hats off to Donkey Kong. And as you can tell, obviously, Dixie Kong is going into the best Kong section. I think she's amazing. Her design is amazing to me. I love her movement in the games. If someone honestly played Kiddy Kong over Dixie Kong, that's very, very hard for me to believe, because I don't know why in the world you would pick Kiddy Kong over Dixie Kong. And in DKC2, I always preferred to play as Dixie Kong over Diddy Kong. Being able to twirl in the air is just so much fun to me. Along with Diddy Kong, I love all of her animations, I love her expressions. Diddy Kong is cool, but Dixie Kong is just cooler to me. Dixie Kong is someone that I really would like to get added into Smash Bros. I do not think she would just be a clone of Diddy. Her hair alone gives her so much personality and differences from Diddy that there's no need for her to even be a clone. She should be in Smash Bros. In my opinion as a DK rep. And from when I was a kid all the way till now, she's always been my favorite Kong. I love Dixie Kong as a character. And I hope she gets more representation as time goes on. Because in my opinion, the other Kongs don't compete. So that's my Kong family tier list. I'll have the tier list in the description below if you want to make your own tier lists. But I did alter the original one. But I wanted the person who made the original one to get the credit for making this tier list, even though I changed it a little bit for when I did it. So the link to the original one will be in the description below. And feel free to make your own tier lists. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comment section down below on what you think about my tier list. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and want to support my content, feel free to subscribe. And until next time, I'll see y'all later. Take care, everyone.